Hello friend, it's Amy Tangerine. Welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would play around with some colors and show you how I put this together. I'm experimenting with these fresh dye re-inkers with my Altenew collaboration, and I'm squeezing a little bit of tickled pink onto this palette here. I have this idea where I want to try to take inks and make them feel like watercolors. I'm not sure if it's going to work out, which is part of the fun when it comes to experimenting and trying different things with your supplies. This Easy Breezy, the color before was Tangerine Dream. How many of you love playing with your supplies in different ways? I'm taking this little dropper and putting just a bit of water into each pan, and also over here in this little empty slot. So I'm taking this brush, and as soon as I started, I'm glad I didn't bring out a new brush, because the tickled pink for some reason was a little bit of a different texture than I expected. And that's actually the only one that gave me a little bit of trouble. So I decided to add a little bit more water and mix it up so that the consistency would change, but it turned out it didn't really help that much, but I do like the effect because it is different than watercolors. It's also different than straight up inks when you dilute it with water. So I'm playing around and I decided to make a little splotch in my planner, and this is where I chose a new brush by Altenew, which I really like, but it turns out that I didn't damage it. It did get a little cakey. Once I added this Tangerine Dream, look at how nice that is. It really smoothed out and the consistency felt really good. And there was just a little bit of see-throughness, but not bleed through. So now I'm taking my Jane Davenport watercolor journal, and sorry, this isn't available anymore, but it does have watercolor pages. And if I find another similar notebook, I will definitely link it. And if you know of one, please do share. Now, this consistency is so much different than the tickled pink for some reason. I don't know if it's a different formula, but this one is Easy Breezy re-inker with water, and it just feels really good going onto the paper. I'm rinsing the brush a little bit, so I'm adding a little bit of water off camera, and I'm sort of intuitively deciding where it should go, but I love the softness, and I want to balance it off onto the left side of the page because you know how much I enjoy the double page spread when it comes to creative journaling or art journaling. This actually turns out to be a fun way to get the scrapbooking memories in without feeling like you're taking on a whole big scrapbooking project. Okay, so next up here is I've added some water, and then I'm dropping just a little bit of ink. This color is called Let Us Celebrate, Lettuce. I love how so many of you reacted very favorably. Wait, is that a word? Favorably? Well, you really enjoyed the colors and the names of these inks. So Let Us Celebrate is a soft green. I added a little bit more water and then decided maybe I need a little bit more ink. This whole process feels very freeing to me. I'm not sure if you find when you're playing around with your supplies, you're letting go of expectations. That's when new discoveries can really be made, right? You're just learning and enjoying the process with very little expectation. I did not know that this was going to be sort of a scrapbook layout, but it turned out to be one of my favorite pages that I've created in a long time. So I'm mixing colors here, speeding it up a little bit so this video isn't about 45 minutes. I think that's how long the total time it took to film this. So if you're expecting the tickled pink to turn out the way the other ones do, I think that's just a different formula, to be honest. I'm not sure. I can check with Altenew, but because of the vibrancy, it just turns out different. So if you're going to try to repeat this process, just know that the tickled pink maybe needs a little bit more water. You may want to use a brush that you're not so precious with. I love the fact that my supplies are for using. I decided that a while ago, and I try not to be so precious with things. I try to experiment, have fun with the process, and hopefully empower you to do the same. Now I'm adding a little bit of color with the blue and mixing it up a little bit more, adding a little bit more water where I feel like it needs to be blended. And then I'm going to grab these stamps and try to get some florals onto this page. I want to make sure it's totally dry though, because I don't want it to run. So when you are doing stamping onto watercolors, I recommend waiting until it's completely dry. You can do something else while you're waiting. You can take a heat tool to let it dry faster, but I'm adding some ink. I've put the stamp onto an acrylic block, and I'm adding the ink Be Grateful onto the flower. And I want to put it onto the page. I realized that I didn't have full coverage, so I want to make sure it's nice and juicy and it stands up, or stands out rather, onto this watercolor paper. So I'm going to stamp it on here, and with my left hand I've lifted the cover up a little bit of the book because I want to try to get even coverage and not have it have any gaps or anything. So that's what I'm doing here. I love when the designs run off of the page. Let me know if you like that too, because it's one of those things where I don't want to feel constrained. I want to feel as if my design can feel flowing, as if not as if it's going on forever or anything, but I want it to feel really intentional yet free flowing, if that makes any sense. So I'm taking off the stamp and then adding this little splotch, which has turned out to be one of my favorite stamps that I designed with Altenew, because it's artsy enough. You can combine them, you can use different colors. It's a nice little quick background. Of course, you could paint these splotches, but the beauty of having a stamp set already designed for you is that you can just build upon it. And you can make sure that you enjoy the way you're utilizing them. If you like bright, bold colors, you can use that. If you like it to be a little bit more subtle, if you want to turn it a little bit, it fits in there really nicely. I couldn't decide where this one was going to go, so I put it down here. Now taking the Peachy Keen, and I didn't really clean off my stamp. I got to get better about that. And I'm adding that right into the spaces to make it feel very layered and also give it some dimension in a way that doesn't actually add dimension. I guess it's a little bit of contrast, but it flows really nicely. And I found this perfect photo of me and Juniper taken at a place in Culver City. I can just let you know that it's right across from the post office on Culver Boulevard if you want to take some photos there. Now I'm taking Berry Cool and adding more flowers, just filling in some gaps because I think I want the photo to actually cover up that, hot pink blob that was happening where I was experimenting. So this looks like a good place. I'm just taking adhesive and I'm going to put the photo down. And the reason I like to do it onto the paper instead of the photo is just because of placement. I already knew where I wanted it to go. Now I'm taking Easy Breezy and I'm going to stamp a title on the left side, right onto where the splotches and the stamping already are. It's a really cool layered effect. And then I'm just taking my pen and adding some simple journaling. The story behind the photo is really basic, but I love adding just a little bit of context to whoever reads it. Now, of course, you could add more of the story. You could add who, what, where, when, why, but I just wanted to keep it pretty simple and not take away from too much of the spread. I love the negative space that this has. So the journaling reads, "May you always discover joy in unexpected places. We had simply dropped something off at the post office and then saw this fun floral mural. Of course, we had Oppo snap a few photos." Hope you enjoyed seeing this process, and let me know if you have any questions or comments below. I read every single one and try and respond as well. Thanks as always for watching, being a subscriber, and Tangerine. I did film this video before all of the studio move out chaos, and thank you so much for your kind words about that transition on my last video. In case you missed it, I will link it here. I'm still going to be showing up here on YouTube regularly and taking you along on the journey, so please subscribe if you haven't already. Hope you feel inspired to get those creative juices flowing, my friend.